really think what they want to come. Do we want long-term sustainability, or do we want that short-term boom? Just find it. Knowledge is power.
I'm Paul Devane. I'm a producer for IndianCountryTV.com.
And I'm Jeremiah Manzer. I'm a resident of Iron Belt, Wisconsin, here in Iron County. And I was a botanist for Glyphwick for 3 years, and just go out in the woods and I gather. That's what I do nowadays. So,
tell us a little bit about what you're seeing here. We're in the heartland of northern Wisconsin, where we, in some cases, have a controversy over people who want to mine, and people who are concerned about all kinds of other things if that mine should go in. You said you have a chance to harvest and meet with people in the area. Tell us a little bit about that community that you see.
Well, this local community, a lot of the people they're woodsmen. This is hardy country. It snows 6-8 months out of the year, and so we live hard up here, and it's a choice to come up here. And during those 6 or 8 months when the Harleys aren't rolling by the house, during those 6 or 8 months, most of the people burn firewood. That's their primary source of heating up here. A lot of the people, they get their income going out in the woods and either making that firewood or just for heating their home. And a lot of these locals, some of the best knowledge of these forests come from these local people. They are out there every day. They're out there gathering. They're out there picking medicinals, picking the wild leeks, and it's what the people here do. There's not a lot around. There's not a lot of places to go. There's not a lot of supermarkets, and hunting and gathering is kind of the way people make it by up here in the far north.
When you say that, people go out and harvesting. We're looking for alternative ways to create jobs and self-sustainability. And do you think there's enough of that opportunity where people are making residual incomes or additional incomes? You mentioned some guy who makes part of his income through carving diamond willow. And we don't need to mention names just in case it might jeopardize. We understand that the issue is getting rather tense. So tell me a little bit about people like that.
Well, once again, when you come up to this area, the incomes aren't the same. The jobs are, you make a choice to be up here, so the jobs don't pay quite as much. And then there's a lot of people in this community that are on fixed incomes to begin with. And so to supplement that income, there's 2 or 3 old guys in this community who they go out and they gather diamond willow. They gather different kinds of wood to make walking sticks, and then they sell them in ironwood, and then they get a supplemental income that way. They just put a little bit extra on top so that they're not living paycheck to paycheck every single paycheck. And also too, the foodstuffs. They're supplementing a lot of their meals, a lot of their meat intake into their house from going out into the woods and gathering those deer in those areas, especially the county lands where it's open and free hunting for all the residents. That's where they gather all their foods. So,
you told me a little bit about your decision to come up here. Tell me about that history.
I started off in upstate New York, and I came to the Northland area in 1996, and I fell in love with the area, but we thought we needed a better income, so we left. We went to Washington State, we went to southern Wisconsin, and although we could make a great income, as much money as we could ever want, we weren't home. And so we took a drastic pay cut. More than half of our income was taken away by our choice to come back and live up here because of the place that we are, of the people that we're around. And this is home, this is our family, this is our place that we want to be. And so we made that choice for that reason.
When you see people advocating for this open pit mine, a lot of people says this is our heritage. But it doesn't seem that in conversations that I have, the difference between shaft mining and open pit mining is very well thought out and the potential impacts. What's your feeling about what voices have been heard in this community? Have all the voices been heard in this community, or has it been dominated by something else?
It really has been dominated by GTAC has an office in downtown Hurley. And so they have that setup where they've got the propaganda out there, where they're so pro-mine. This is your father's way of living. This is the way that the good way that we live. And if you really talk to the people, if you really talk to the old timers, the way people lived was hard. Mines were never nice to families. They were never good to people. They were never good to towns. They were never good to townships. And that sentiment is still there. It's just people are craving so much of a idea that's being put out there. They think they're all going to make $60,000 to $100,000 a year going down into these mines, but they're picturing the hard hat and their lunchbox and a pasty in their pocket and, you know, going down in the mines like their grandfathers. But they don't understand what's really coming. They don't understand what an open pit mine entails, and they don't understand that those kind of jobs don't exist anymore, where, you know, it's not manual labor, it's machines, and you have to be able to pilot those machines, and these people don't have the education. They don't have that knowledge to do that.
When you gauge the community reaction to this thing, would it be good to hold a referendum, do you think, in the county? Would it be, because I see these signs that says stop whining, start mining, let local people decide. Let people who reside decide. But there has never been a referendum, and it seems to me that as we get out in the community and find people, there's a lot of people who really haven't contemplated the extent of this mine or the impacts on other communities. Are people beginning to come together in a way that will give them voice on this issue?
They're trying to. Like I said, that the people are there. The people who spend their time in the woods and around are there. And I think a referendum would really show how many people are not pro-mine, you know, are not up for losing those resources that they use every day, losing those trails they drive their four-wheeler down every day. You know, if you go to downtown Hurley, you're right, you do see a lot of those signs. But when they tried to do some paperwork to put out there to have everybody sign if you're pro-mine, they found out that there's not as many signatures out there as they wanted. There's not as many people willing to put themselves on the line and say, yes, this is better, because they started to learn. They started to get information from Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission in those places where now they knew that something different is coming. This is a type of mine that they've never had.
We've been up and down here, 77, looking at some of the old mining communities. One of the things that stands out in my mind is probably 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, maybe 6 closed schools. What does that represent in your mind in regards to what's going on now? This challenge that if there is a mining operation, the idea that there might be a big influx for 25 or 30 years.
Well, that's the idea, is that but that's the boomtown mentality. We will have an influx. There will be a boost in population. The bars are going to do great. We're going to build new schools. We're going to build new infrastructure to support all of these people coming in. But 25 years from now, my family's still going to be sitting here. My grandkids, my children, we're all going to still be here. But the mines aren't. And then somebody's going to have to make that decision to close those schools down again, to stop supporting that infrastructure, because we won't have that income anymore to support it. And so that boomtown, yeah, it'll be great in the short term, but in the long term, we lose, just as we always have.
In terms of harvest products and other things, tourism, ancient tourism, mining history and stuff like that, do you think there's a possibility that some of that might be able to sustain a little bit of this job ideas? People need more jobs. This community seems to have been making this change over into a four-season tourism area. What's your feeling about that? Is that a better idea than this whole open pit mine idea?
It is, because that's the only economy we have right now is tourism. You know, we have it, but nobody's really rebuilding that infrastructure for tourism. You know, they still have it set up like we're waiting for those mines to come back, because we just lost White Pine Mine 5 years ago.
Right.
You know, and so we're just waiting and waiting and waiting, but nobody's improving. Nobody's making things better. And if they could, they would see all of these local businesses are supported by tourism, and expanding that so that you could go tour all these historical sites would be an amazing improvement.
One last message to the people out there watching this today. What would you tell them? What's your message that they ought to know if they're out there looking in today? How can they help, maybe? What would you tell them in the last words?
I would tell them to research. Go out, look, find the information, and really read, really understand what's coming, what's happening, and think critically about what they want from this. Really think what they want to come. Do we want long-term sustainability, or do we want that short-term boom? Just find it. Knowledge is power.
Miigwech. Thank you
Miigwech.
much. Appreciate it.
For Indian Country TV, that is Paul Demain and Jeremiah
Manzer.
Manzer.
If I were a healer, I'd tell you what I'd do. Well, I'd heal up all our children from the alcohol and abuse. So well, I'd take away all their heartaches. I'd take away all their fear, and I'd wrap them in a Pendleton blanket. I could see them smile again. Oh, well, I'd help them break these chains that bind them to their misery. Oh, and I'd show them a better way to put an end to their suffering. Oh, yeah. Or to believe, or to believe. Well, it's the other side of midnight, when the darkest hours come, and it's the other side of this empty life that they're searching for. And I'd show them there's a future brighter than their wildest dream. And